there's always been this notion that we are so lucky to have been like born in the United States because we're so free in the U.S., right? And I've never quite understood that. Like I've never understood this specialness that the U.S. has. Like yes, we have the Second Amendment, we have the right to own guns, but we should not have that much of a right? We have free speech, we can say what we want, right? But like most of the rest of the world also has the ability to do that. Most developed nations throughout the world have some form of free speech, but it's still this. So I've never quite understood it until moving here, and I've come to discover a different perspective on freedom, because here, living in Spain, I feel freer. Like I feel like there's a freeness to actually be myself. There's a safety that I feel here that I never felt back there. I'm eating new foods and wearing new clothes, like different clothes, and having different experiences. Because the notion of freedom that we have in the United States is this: you have this freedom as long as you are willing to conform to the majority, right? Like you have freedom of speech as long as the things that you are saying aren't going to offend the majority, right? Or as long as you have the power to uphold that own freedom, right? We have people that say utterly horrible things, and they are legally freely able to say them, right? On you've got Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk and these horrible right-wing pundits that are saying these terrible things that are protected because of America's freedoms, right? But then somebody like me, if I get on Facebook and I say, oh, hey, guess what? I'm less afraid of trans women in the bathroom with me than I am of a Republican member of Congress in the bathroom with me. Like, then I have the perfect freedom to say that. But those same people that are saying these terrible things and protected by these freedoms will come after me. Like, so it's the illusion of freedom that is supposed to make America just this wonderful place. But over here, I'm like, there's this genuine sense of there's a lack of judgment here. I think maybe that's what it boils. Like, there is a lack of judgment, and so I feel safer and calmer and more able to actually be myself, whichever like version of that I want to be over here, that I never felt back there. And it was very similar to, I've had two toxic relationships that define most of my life. The relationship with my mother and a relationship with an ex. And leaving the United States feels very similar to leaving my mom's house and hitting the age as an adult that I finally in my late 30s decided, yeah, okay, you have to go to therapy. And then realizing with my therapist, looking back at all these behaviors that were so normal, right? This was just normal. It's just how everybody was. Looking back and going, no, those were all horribly abusive, toxic behaviors. And then leaving my relationship with my ex, and after that, looking back and going, all of these red flags, all of these terrible, terrible red flags that should have been screaming at me, I didn't notice. You don't notice them until you leave. So being here and actually feeling this sense of, like, I could take a deep breath, right? Like, I can look around and I'm not sitting out here wondering who is hearing me talk about Trump badly, and who of those people are carrying a gun, and who of those people are going to be the kind of person that's going to relish the violence they can inflict on me. I don't have that every single minute of my life, right? And so then I start thinking about the rest of the stuff that we left behind in the U.S. All those other red flags, that it's normal. Like, it's normal. When you are raised in something, you mimic, you adapt the behavior that it becomes normal. So we look back at the U.S. and, like, school shootings are just something, it's normal. It's just something that we have to suffer from in order to have our freedom, right? People like Charlie Kirk going to college campuses and baiting teenagers into debates that they are in no way prepared for is just normal, right? That's something that we have to allow to happen so that we can have the freedom of speech, right? And then you go, all the other freedoms that we, most Trump supporters could not list any other amendment other than the first and the second, right? Then we talk about the ability that, we still allow slavery in the United States because we have for-profit prisons. So we have a justice system that is designed around how many people can we put in prison. Like, it's absurd, this idea that America is so free, when in reality, I have not felt this level of freedom in any facet of my life until I left the United States. And coming to realize that, it's leaving an abusive relationship. It's looking back and going, every teacher that I ever had that told me how lucky I was to be born in this country, they weren't lying to me because they didn't know they were lying. They had been taught and indoctrinated the same way I was. Like, every movie that I ever watched that was about yay America, and every movie that I ever watched that was like, a war one, and the military is so great. All of the media that I consumed that was all like, here's why these other countries are terrible, and here's why America is so wonderful. Everything that we ever consume as United States citizens, it's all a lie. Like, it's all built and designed to keep you trapped in this notion that every other place in the world is worse than the United States. Just so that we continue to put up with toxic behavior. Like, you continue to let your husband beat you because everybody around you tells you that's just what you do, that's just normal. Like, we continue to let the United States government beat us because we think that's what we're supposed to live like. And it took moving to Spain. And even more than that, it took moving to Spain and telling people stories about what it's like to live in the United States and see the look on their face. Because I would tell stories about my relationship with my mom, and then people would look at me with this horrified look on their face. And I'd be like, what? That's just like a funny childhood anecdote, right? And they'd be like, no, that's not normal. So I tell my doctor about, like, I'll just deal with a broken finger, and she looks at me like, why would you live like that, right? I tell my boss that I've never had paid vacation days, and he looks at me like, why would you live like that? Like, and it took moving to Spain to realize that it's an illusion. They sell us a lie of freedom so that they can keep us trapped in a cycle of abuse. I ramble.
No, that's
Sorry.